Hi everyone, welcome to the session. We'll be starting in the next 2 minutes. We'll just wait till then, and once we start, we'll give our exam. Thank you for all of your patience. Looking forward for a good session going forward. Hi guys, I hope I am audible. If yes, please respond in the chat with yes or no. Great guys. I hope the screen is also visible to all of us. If yes, please let me know. Again, just help me out in the chat if the screen is visible. Okay, great, great. I can see the responses. That's awesome. Okay, great. So today we will understand what Excel is capable of, what Excel can do, and how it works. Like basically to give an understanding that if you plan to do an Excel session, or let's say if you are planning to learn Excel, what are the benefits that you get from Excel, how to take it up, and gradually we'll see some reporting concepts, some outputs where it will help us to understand how Excel as a tool has evolved itself to a point where now it actually use something called machine learning, AI level outputs, and how to implement them into our learning and our understanding. But before we start, a quick check in the scale of let's say 1 to 10. Okay, where you can consider 1 is the lowest and 10 is the highest. How would you rate yourself for Excel? How would you rate yourself? Just help me in the chat box in the number format. Again, 1 is the lowest, 10 is the highest. How would you rate yourself for Excel? Just wanted to understand what strength are we holding. Okay, okay. I have some responses in the chat. That's great. Okay, okay. Not too. Need to revise some contents. Okay, fair enough, fair enough. Okay, okay. I'm just parallelly checking both the Zoom and the YouTube so that I get an overall understanding of what's the stage here. Okay, great, great. Perfect, perfect. So basically to give you an understanding, so what I will do here is I'll go from the basic all the way down to help you understand what's a report level output. And for that, I've actually prepared or rather you can say I've actually got this from the internet. So this is the data that I also normally use to present or to explain how Excel can be used. And this is one of an example, a very good example when it comes to data cleansing. Let me delete this. Now let me give you the background of this data first. Okay, firstly, the data that we are seeing here is a windmill data, right? So at the bottom of a windmill, you will see a kind of a, let's say, unit recorder, which keeps a record of the units produced by that windmill every hour, every day. And this is the data for the year 2014, let's say. So starting on the first month of January, all the way down to, let's say, December, every hour the electricity generated is been documented over here. And as you can see, the record starts from the second row all the way down, spanning to 8,761. So the total number of record you can assume is around 8,700 plus records. So this is the amount of data that has been there. Now what I want here is, using this data, I need to make a report which helps me understand on a month-on-month basis and a week-on-week basis what's the amount of electricity produced in the timeline. And let's say what are the things you can do to make the production of electricity consistent so that my company can generate good revenue. If you see, this is the output, sample output that we have derived. And so this again, so this is something we can, and we can build more stuff out of it as well. Now let me come back to the first stage over here. Okay, this is the first data that we have here. Okay. Now what I want is I want to extract info. Now what all information can I extract? One, I know that there is a time over here because it's for every hour. So there's a time punch. So I would need the time first. Let me just, let's say, yeah, that should do it. So I would need the time first. Followed by that, I would need the date and the units. So these are the information I would like to extract from the data set provided over here. Now, there are many methods available. Some of you guys might be thinking, can we use text to column? But the challenge over here is, if you take text to column, you need to provide a delimiter, a separator. If I think of using a space or a comma, the challenge is it's not consistent throughout. The data that you will extract will be spreaded out across pages. I want to clean it a bit more better. Now, if you are using any version which is less than 2010, MS Office 2010, specifically if I have to say, MS Office 2010, okay, in that case, less than or equals to, rather I would say, then you will have to use the manual method. Else you can use the AI method, or you can use the machine learning method, where you train the computer or you train your Excel, and gradually you will get to understand how things work. Let me show you for the version which is lower. Let's say if you do not have the higher version, you guys are using 2007 or 10 for that matter, how to perform this output. I need to take time here. Okay. I select the whole data, copy it, and I paste it in the B column so that I end up getting a copy column. I can work on the copies here. Now, what's the consistency that I find here is that the first thing is the time, and I can see AM, PM specifically mentioned over here. That's a good thing for me. So under Excel, there is a concept called find and replace, which majority of must be aware of from like many movies and all. But the concept over here is I want to find something and replace it with something. So over here, I'll use find and replace under the home tab. That brings up the box. Now what I'm looking for, I'm looking for PM and anything after that. Now anything after that, I cannot literally type the whole thing. What I do is, because I do not know the length, you can put something called as a wildcard character, which is a star in this case. I repeat, if in case you do not know the length of the unknown number of characters and you want to capture them, simply putting an asterisk in this case or simply putting a star in this case does work alone. Star is basically a SQL character which is also referred as all. It is also referred as all in this case. So in this case, when I'm saying PM star, this means anything after PM, even consider that as a part of the logic. Okay. Now to the next part of the data, I will be sharing the file in the chat, no worries. Okay. But I'll have to just check with the team if that's possible through Zoom. If yes, I'll definitely share it out. If not, then let's see how it works. Maybe after the session, I can ask the team to send it out to you guys. Okay. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Now in this case, once I put PM star at the replace parameter, the alternative parameter, I only want PM. So I put just the PM. Now, in this case, I'm putting a space PM. You may ask me why, because if you see, some times are very much sticky towards the number. And whenever we mention time, we always mention a gap between them, right? That's why I'm adding a space before. As you can see, there is a space over here. So space before PM. After this, I'll just click replace all, means replace every PM with an extra character next to it with only the PM character. I click here and you would see magically all the extra contents are gone, but only for the PM. And you can see all done. We have replaced around 4,000 characters. So 4,300 characters. I click OK. I repeat the same for AM as well. And I repeat the same structure again at the bottom. I use the same parameter, replace all, and there we have it. We can see all the AMs and PMs have cleaned out. Only thing left is this extra underscore, which is again a very simple output. I just have to put an underscore here, replace it with nothing. I'll just keep it blank. I'll simply keep it blank here. Right? Once done, I'll just say replace all. And that simply cleans up my entire data. And now you have a proper set of time available. So this is how it works. Now, you may say such not yet in time. No worries, we can use formula called value to convert it into a time. And then we can simply replace it. But then that's a additional output, which we're not looking right now. But basically, this is just to help you understand. If you are using an older version, the technique still works. It's just that you may have to put a little bit of extra time, extra effort to get this thing done. Now, let me show you the method that I am here to teach you guys, or I'm here to explain or rather share with you. This is called as machine learning, where you train the system with some examples, and gradually as the example gets triggered, your outputs are really like it automates the output. Okay. Now, let's say, for example, what I want here is I want the time, right? I want the first timer that is 3 p.m. But the challenge is when I put 3 space PM, as per the system, it auto corrects itself into a proper time. Now, this is not what I'm looking for. I do not want time to be punched directly. I want to maintain it, because when you're doing a machine learning here, when you're training your computer, it needs to have been exactly the same. It simply cannot be an alternative version, because if you realize the time that I am mentioning here is 3.00 PM, which is not actually the part of the record. So you'll not understand exactly what I'm looking for. So to avoid this, what I do is I put a single quote. Now you may be aware of the single quote. So whenever you're putting any number, end up getting only the number. To maintain those zeros, we put a single quotes and then we go through this. Right? Once I click enter, and that concludes my output in this case. And that concludes, right? It maintains those zeros. I want to maintain these zeros. Now to do this, same for the timing, I put a single quotation and I say I want 3 space PM. I want to have this kind of an information from the adjacent data. I'm training my computer. I'm training my Excel in this case. Once this is done, once I have this as an output, I come to the alternative, the next cell, and under the data tab, there is a button called flash fill, which is just next to text to file. This flash fill is a feature which is moreover like a machine learning algorithm. You just train your computer gradually and the system works automatically. The shortcut for this is Control E. Now, if I press Control E in this case, automatically you can see some set of informations are auto-populated. Although it's not correct, definitely, but it can be further taught. As a computer, you can train the computer gradually. For example, I go in the second cell, I double click, and as soon as I do that, you can see the entire column is pre-selected. I put a space to make it understand what I'm looking for. That means in this case, I'm telling the system that there should be a gap between the number and the text. That's fine. Enter, and you can see the same correction happens throughout. I repeat the process again on the third one, where it is not understanding what to do with an underscore. I remove them and I press an enter. This time it understands that, okay, even underscore is not required. So gradually you can see all the data is corrected itself. The best part in this case is if you already know which one is the difficult one. As you realize after attending the first, second, and the third one was the one where it understood exactly what's needed. If you are able to start from the third position, but then this becomes kind of a trial and error where you'll have to learn through the data. But again, if you are able to give an accurate answer, like in this case, if I start with 8 PM, I press an enter, and then I press Control E, which is apparently the shortcut for flash fill. It auto corrects the rest one as well, because this one is a difficult one where it has to understand the underscore. It also has to remember that there has to be a space between 8 and the PM. So it actually gradually understands it and then picks up the answer. I hope this makes sense to all of us. If yes, just type a yes. And if you liked what you saw, you can just mention a, let's say, high five in the chat box. If things are clear, just help me in the chat with your confirmation. And if you like what you saw. If you feel like this was really good, just mention a high five in the chat box. I'll just take a pause for 30 seconds for your responses. So basically, this is what Excel is capable of, guys. This is what, if you are able to get this kind of an output, imagine the amount of time that you will be able to save, right? And this will basically, like, if I had to do this manually, I have done this apparently manually, and it has taken me hours of time, like around 2 to 3 hours to just get this clean. You realize now doing this method, it's able to get it done in 5 minutes. That's the amount of time you are saving in this case. And this is what we learn in Excel as in detail. Which version of Excel are you using? I'm using Office 365, but as I mentioned earlier, that if you are using Office 2013 and higher version, you have this functionality already inbuilt into your system. So the minimum requirement in this case would be Office 2013 and higher version. But definitely in the lower versions, you can use alternative techniques like find and replace and all those things. It is doable, but definitely not 2 hours or 3 hours. It may take you 15 minutes to 20 minutes, but yes, definitely it will increase the time in comparison with your, let's say, machine learning in this situation. Let me do one thing. Let me also share this file in the chat with you guys so that you guys can also have the access of it. Give me just 1 second. Let me stop this. I'll have to close the file actually first and share it with you guys. So I've shared the file in the chat with you guys. So you should be receiving it in the next minute. Yeah, there we go. So I believe you should be having the file. Please give me a confirmation in the chat once you receive the file. I'll just wait for a minute here so that everyone can get it downloaded. And if in case you want to practice it with me, feel free to do that. I'm happy and I'll be obliged to. So you can attempt this out at your end. If it works, well and good. If not, at least you can understand. You can view and you can have an understanding how it works. So as of now, it's 2:27. I'll just wait for another 30 more seconds. So I'll just repeat the technique just for those who have just joined in. You give a first, there are two techniques. One, provide the difficult one, or the alternative is keep teaching your system until unless it gets corrected. So the technique is you give the first correct answer, which you are looking for. Press Control E. Let me write it over here. Okay. So you press Control E in this case, it actually auto triggers the output here. And as it auto triggers, you can correct itself gradually as to explain that exactly what are you looking for. So in this case, I removed the underscore and here I actually added a space and that corrects the output throughout. So people online, you can try it out at your end. Give me a thumbs up once you are through with this. Try it out at your end. So as of now, it's let's say 80:28. I'll wait till let's say 30. 2 minutes for practice. Any questions, any queries? You guys can ask me in the chat or you can unmute yourself if required. I guess you can put the question in the chat itself. That way it would be easy rather than having chorus. So can you tell? Just the method is that basically you give an example, and once the example is understood by the system, just press Control E. In this case, if you want, you can actually start with the difficult one, which is the fourth row in this case, which is third record. You provide one example, which is a single quote, 8 p.m. You provide the input, you press Control E, and that should automate the output. Vitali, I hope that answers your question. Sandeepan, I hope that answers your question as well, I believe. Yeah. Okay. Great, great. So just wait for another 30 more seconds. Yeah. So that's step one, guys. So I'll just wait for another 15 seconds and then I'll proceed further to the next step. Great, great. Some fields are getting blank. That means the entry that is done is meant wrong. So as I mentioned, you have to give the example as accurate as possible. So in this case, if you realize, I'm putting a single quotes before 3 and then space and then 3 p.m. So it has to be as accurate as possible so that the system understands what am I looking for. If let's say my write up, when I'm writing, that the data is wrong, then when it does not get, it simply gives it blank. And we will see that in the second exercise. So once we do the second one, you'll understand that. After editing, basically you just press F to edit it and then you can make the correction. But the editing is also only available until unless you have only completed the first phase. If you perform anything else over here and then if you go down to the first column again, now the editing, because you ended up creating a new column or you did perform some other action, Excel is assuming that the B column is concluded. So the autocorrect feature or the flash fill feature gets disabled. So now in this case, you'll have to delete the whole thing and redo it again in such situations. So just be mindful of that, please. So it's a very good feature. It's a very good tool, but yeah, it has its own drawbacks. So out of, let's say 100%, 100 times, maybe you can say 95% times it will give you the accurate answer. But there is a 5% outlier where you will have to go through the data once as a second eye check, so that the data that is presented to you is not wrongly provided. So that check has to be done at every given point. Which I believe is still a fair choice, because if you have to get the work done in 2 hours, which is able to be done in 5 minutes, and you have to spend another 5 minutes for the QA, that's still a fair trade, I believe. Please try it out and give me a confirmation in the chat, guys, that you guys are able to attempt it. Just type done in the chat box so that I know I can proceed further with the second exercise. Any questions, any queries, please mention in the chat box. As I mentioned earlier, please repeat for old versions. Okay. So for the older version, the concept is a bit different, where you'll have to copy the data. Let me do it on the same column itself. So paste it over. Then you can use home, find, and replace. Under find, you'll have to attempt 2 processes. One is basically you need to replace all the PM star, right? Star is for any and every character. Star means all. And replace it with a space and a PM. You do it once. Repeat the process for AM or other way around. Either if you are doing the PM, AM first and PM later. Replace all. And that eliminates the second layer. And the last one is replace underscore with blank. And that should basically, this is the second method in case you're using the older version. And for newer version, as I mentioned, just put a single quote, 8 space PM if you are trying with a difficult one, or else you try 3-layer output where you give one, try correcting itself with the second one, and then later correcting with the final output. Great. I have 3 to 4 responses. I believe others are also trying it out. Now the next phase over here is basically to get the date and the units. Now in this case, I'll show you an alternative version of the same method. So let's say if I want to extract the time, I showed you one method of iterations. Second method is give it a multiple example from the get-go. Because what will happen if you try the first method, you will have to correct itself gradually. Like for example, if I say I want 24th MAR, that is for March 2014. Now the challenge over here is every time you do not mention TH with the data, right? So this is an irrelevant object. So I'll remove it. The only thing what I want is 24 MAR 2014. Definitely there's a hyphen in the middle. So I'll just ignore the space and I provide a hyphen in this case. That way I'm able to correct the date in this case. Once I'm done with the first one, if I do Control E in this case, as you can see, the answer is not correctly plotted. Some cases the data is missing. Some cases the year is missing. So it's not able to understand exactly what I'm looking. I can go in the second cell and correct itself and it will auto-populate the output. But then rather doing this approach, where you're training the system after one, then the other, you give multiple examples so that the system can run a permutation combination between the examples and give you the final output. So for example, let's say I take 24 MAR, that's March here, 2014. I gave the first example and then I come with the second one. Again, in this case, I'm not adding Monday because that's not consistent everywhere. You can see your second record, it's not there. Third record, there is a Tuesday, but then fourth record does not exist. And the fifth record is like entire thing is there Friday, right? It's an inconsistency. Pick up the data that's consistent throughout. Doesn't matter the position, but it has to be consistent throughout. 15-AUG-2014. Once I have given two examples over here, I come to the third cell. And in this case, it actually has two examples to work. If you want to have it more accuracy, you can give more examples. But at this stage, I press Control E. And you can see with just two examples or with multiple iterations, it gives me a better answer in comparisons to others. Now, you may have a question, what if the year changes? Don't worry, guys. As there is a pattern in the data, you just come to that cell, change the year gradually, all the other where the years are different will be auto captured. Please try it out if in case you want to. Again, I'll give you guys 2 minutes to give an attempt. It's 37. I'll wait till let's say 39. Once done, please type done in the chat and I'll proceed further with the last method, the last out. Great, that's great. You guys are done. Perfect. Okay, 2 of you guys are through. Waiting for others' responses. Great, great. I hope at least these things will help you in the future whenever you're working. This should save at least 2 to 3 hours of your time in the future endeavors. Great, great, great. Okay. So just for this. Uh, Sandipta, yes, you can do this in Python as well, but for that you will have to specifically download the let's say the library that you would be using for that. So it is possible. See, I have a thought, and I always have believed that not maybe with one method, but definitely things are possible by hook or by crook in any platform. As I mentioned earlier, if I did not have this functionality, I would have done it manually with some find, replace, some kind of a combination. But it is possible. It's just that we need to be aware that that method exists. And once that method exists, we can simply implement that learning and we can try it out. So we just have to reach to that point that how to get that thing. I hope I'm able to answer your question. Yeah, yeah. Why is the yes, there is an issue because apparently if you see the record everywhere, it's not there. No? MARCH does not exist in the record itself. And as I mentioned, when you're doing a machine learning, okay, when you're training your computer, in that case, you have to see to it is as accurate as possible in the data, or else there would be like outliers, or the data may not come up accurately the way it has to. Yep. Okay, great. Let me repeat the process once again as some of you guys are asking it. So let me just do the process once again last time. 24 MAR. So I'll just provide the input over here. 2014. Okay. Once done, you try the second alternative, that's 15 AUG 2014. And when you give two examples, you come down to the next cell, press Control E, and that should give you the rest of the answers. Arif, I hope that answers your question as well. Okay. I take it as a yes. Moving on. Now, the last approach is one of my favorites because here the system auto captures my requirement and it ploms the output gradually. Okay. So to do that, in this case, I just have to tell the system exactly what I'm looking at. I don't even have to press the shortcut here. For example, I take the first one, 0.384, the first number I'm looking for. I press an enter. Okay, that's the unit of consumption or unit of production in this case. And if I do it again for the second one, see the magic. As I do that, it actually predicts my action. This is the third layer where the data, if the system understands exactly what are you looking for, The system predicts your answer. As you can see, I've not done anything. I just wrote 1. And it's predicting that I'm looking for 1.201. If I press an enter, you could see automatically the answer populates throughout for the entire set of records. Now, the challenge here is if you think like you would like to attempt this once again, you delete the set of the data. And then you try again, it will not appear because now you have deleted the auto-completed answer. Now, the system is assuming that, okay, the system answer was wrong. So it has to learn further. So it's not going to predict the output. So as you do again, let's say 1.201. And then you try, now it's predicting because now it has 2 permutation combination to work. So based on that, the answer auto corrects itself. So this is how machine learning works in your system, guys. Now let me do the whole process once again, and then I'll give you guys time to practice it at your end. If any questions, then you can put it in the chat box. This method, what we are discussing is for the higher version. If it's a lower version, then again, as I said, you'll have to try the manual method of find and replace, and you can work it out in that case. So let me do this in here for that purpose. So the time was over here, the difficult version, that's 8 p.m. with a space. Control E, that captures the record. Approach 1. Approach 2 is where you give multiple iterations at the first go. That's 24 MAR 2014. Also 2014. You repeat the process for the second one. That's 15 AUG August 2014, and you press Control E. And the last one was letting the system predict your out. That's 0.384. Enter. You give the prediction, the system does it. You just have to press an enter, and that gives you the final answer. Try this out, guys, at your end. If in case you have any questions, you can ask. And I'll give you guys, let's say, 5 minutes to 7 minutes to complete this. It's 46. Let's take anywhere around 50 or 52 to the nearest. Can you please explain if different? As I mentioned, if there are different years, no worries. You just come to that individual year, get the number corrected for that year, and automatically the data will auto-populate itself. I'm glad to hear that you understood it better. Thank you. Just waiting for everyone's confirmation once they are done. I repeat, once you guys are done, please type done in the chat so that I get the heads up that everyone is done with the attempt. Yes, Akshay, that's exactly correct. This is basically uncharted territory. It's a Pandora's box that you have opened today, so you can explore it further now. So you can take this today, the session that we are doing here today is just a first stepping stone towards a new version or new era of Excel, which Excel has developed itself into. Again, let me be very honest. This is just the tip of the iceberg. There are many more things where like RDBMS, cardinality, lot of things are there, like huge data model, big data. Many things can be done in Excel itself. Akshay, yes, left and right would have done the same process, but as mentioned earlier, it will take a good amount of logical braining and like a lot of brainstorming to get the output. So imagine the amount of time you will be putting into it. Definitely, that is a possibility. I'm not saying no to that. Definitely, there's a possibility, but definitely it will take good amount of time to get that correct. because you'll have to build a logic that how will left understand exactly what are you looking for, and then gradually getting the corrections done and so on. Uh, Rajesh, as I mentioned earlier, for the first one, find and replace, you'll have to use the same technique for the date where you'll find 2014 star, remove everything before, and replace everything from AM, PM. You'll end up getting only the date. Similarly, for the KWH, anything before underscore. So basically, you'll remove star, underscore star, a star underscore to remove everything before the like remove every character before the underscore in this case. Yeah. So basically, you can use the same technique and the method, but as I mentioned, there is a logical brain that is required behind that. Shows error in flash. Okay, if you are trying to do a formula in the column, then it will not allow. Like for example, if you are doing a summation over here, let's say just to give an understanding of the data, if I do a, let's say equals to something and then I try to do the calculation, and if I try control E, it will not work. It will give an error. Formula does not work with flash. So the approach is flash fill has to be a hard punch character, then it does work. I hope that answers the question for some of you guys. Okay. So what if Mitali, as I mentioned earlier, repeating again, if the year changes, just come to that line and just update that year, or as it's a machine learning, right? It's understanding that the year change, the variable should change. It will auto correct itself gradually going forward as. Yeah, correct. Now, basically, the method that you put in, that the effort that you have put in is to get the data clean. And now you have the exact data that's required. Now, from this point on, now once you have a correct data to play with, from this point on, you can present many reports going on to. Like, for example, as I showed earlier, this is the data, this is the output I'm looking forward to, right? So I can actually present this kind of a data at RM. Now, let's see how to prepare this. In this case, we have month, we have weekdays, but apparently I do not have anything as such in our data. Definitely, you can use flash fill over here again to get the month out and all. But there are some formulas also you can use. Like for example, let's say I want to take the month out. I can definitely use MAR. I just type August and my flash fill works gradually. I can definitely use this approach, but that is not possible for weekday. If I want to have Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, like that's not there. And I can't use flash fill also. Let's say if I think of using MON over here and I press Control E, you realize that it is not able to give me a correct output, because in this case, there is no Monday, Tuesday, there's no record over here. What will it give? Until as the record does not exist, it's not able to capture that output. Right? So that's where this challenge is. So if you have the data, it works. If you do not have the data, this does not work. In such cases, you will have to be an interdependent output. Like for example, using flash fill, you got the date, right? Now, date does have quarter, hours, minutes, date, like every parameter of date and time exists in the date parameter. You just have to extract the information out. For example, if I want the year, I can simply type in equals to year, capture the data, and there I have the years in this case. I know this is for the year 2014, so year does not make sense to me. If I want it in months, I can simply take month, take the data, and I get the answer in months. So that's 3, 8, 3, like whatever month it belongs. But in this case, I don't want a month, like number. I want the character, because there is a formula called weekday, where you specifically select the date and then you provide what weekend do you want to follow. The challenge is it gives you the number in, like it gives you the data in number. Like for example, 1 over here stands for Monday. And over here, let's say if I have to go with 7, that's Sunday. So this is a week cycle it's believing it in, right? So 1 is a Monday, 7 is a Sunday. In that case, the range in the middle is what you are getting. I want this exact, not the number. I can use an if statement, but again, why do I have to put that much effort, right? So instead, I use a function called text. Text is a function which is capable of converting a date into any format of my choice. I just have to pick the date, I put a comma, and I provide the format that I'm looking for. I just have to put a double quotation, and within those quotations, I'll have to provide the output I'm looking for. In this case, a single D will give me the number. As you can see, it extracts 24 out, the number, day. If I go with double D, you see the magic over here. It's 7, right? As I drag it down, it becomes 07. That's a formatted number. And now comes the real magic. I go for a triple D. That gives me the week number, like the weekday. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, so on. Last but not the least, if I go with the fourth one, I get the full form. In case if you are looking for a full form, you can try this approach. The same is applicable for the month as well. And the same goes for year as well. You can go all the way from a single character all the way down to 4. So just to give an understanding to you guys, I'll put a triple D, comma, double D. I'm actually formatting my output here. So here I can decide how my data should look like, including if I want, I can actually put the hours, minutes, and second by H, M, and S. If there is a data, it will present that as of now, I don't have the data, so it's not presenting this. But this is just to help you understand that this is how the data works when it comes to the formula. So you know the technique, the outputs are there. If you do not know the technique, then yes, you may have to work out some other alternative. Please try this out at your end and let me know once done. I will be sharing the formula in the chat for you guys so that you guys know exactly what formula is to be used. To get this thing done, these 2, month and the weekday, I will give you guys, let's say, 4 to 5 minutes approx. So as of now, it's 56. I'll wait till 8 max. 881. Please try it out. Any questions, please post in the chat box. Mitali just attempted. You should be able to get it. I've already pasted the formula in the chat. But yes, as I mentioned, there's a limited time frame, guys. So we'll have to like limit our questions. So let's see. I will try my best to answer maximum questions. But yeah, definitely once we are onboarded onto a full-fledged session, you guys will be catered to. Every one person will have one person to one spot to coordinate with for any Q&A. So that would be there in the future. So no worries on that. 3 more minutes and then I'll push forward for the next exercise. For days. Yes, that's exactly correct. D is for the day, M for month, Y for year. You can have it from a single to a 4-character long for all 3 parameters. You can also have a combinations between them. A minute more. Okay. So, yep, sure. I'll just recap for the weeks as well once again. So to get the week data, what we did here is we just try equals to week, sorry, not week, text. You select the dates and in double quotation, you just provide triple E. In case you like you are facing difficulty in understanding how it works, just right click, go to format cell, and you just have to have a check under the formatting option. So like you go to custom, whatever option you try here, you can try all of this in the double quotation. You can try all of this in double quotes. It's just that whatever answer you provide has to be in double quotes. That's a mandate. Okay, great. Now, once we have the data, right, we because the calculation happens always from the unit side. But when you refer a text, it actually aligns from the left side of the data. That's how the software has been built in, right? So in this case, you realize that the time, which apparently is a number, is aligned on the left side. Now, I want a time which I can do the calculation of. Aipa, just help me with your question in the chat and I'll have a look at it, like if that's possible. Let me just go through the chat in case there are any questions. Just 1 minute, guys. Yep, that's answered. How to without drag. You have to drag. Without that, there is no alternative. Or you can like pre-select the way I'm doing it and just press Control D. That's an alternative to that. Then I guess that's taken care. That's also taken care. Okay, fair enough. Cool. So moving on, guys. Now, so once we have this data, as I mentioned, I want this time to be mentioned in a proper format. So what I do is here, I'll create another one called time version 2, second version, second iterations, where I convert the time into a proper time, a line time. So here there is a formula called value. So if you realize, if you can read this parameter, it says convert a text string into a numerical data. So if a string, if a number is presented or stored as a string or text, it gets converted into an actual number, which in this case is actually the situation. So I pick up the time here, I close the bracket. Okay, basically telling the system that 3 p.m. is actually a number and not a text. I want to convert that into a proper number format. I press and enter. It does give me the answer, but not the one that I'm expecting, rather the one that Excel understands. Let's say our day starts from midnight 12, right? Our day starts from midnight 12 and it ends the next day, midnight 11:55, right? PM. We start at an AM, we end at a PM. So in that case, if we start at the midnight 12 and at afternoon 12 PM, okay, I'm almost 50% of the day, right? If you see, if I convert these two numbers, but simply convert these two numbers, let me put this as AM, right? But simply convert this into two number. Let me just pull it down. You will see in percentage term, this is 0. The day didn't start yet. But if you see, this is exactly 0.5. That's 50% of the day is completed. So all these data, all the time is stored in decimals. All the times are stored in decimals or in percentage, if I have to say. Right? So in this case, the data that you're seeing here right now is also in decimals, representing time. To get this into a proper format, just you have to implement the shortcut which I'm mentioning here. Control plus shift plus @ You implement it on the time and you get the time. Now, in my case, my system follows AM, PM. That's why I am getting 3 PM as an output. If in your case, the system does not follow this, you can have something like 15 also. So either way, both the answers are correct. It just depends on what your version, your system version supports. So let's say in this case, you can see something like 3 PM, 5 PM. If in case your system follows a 24-hour cycle, then it will go with 15, 5, 20, and so on. Anuja, I've already shared the file earlier, so it's there in the chat already. Just scroll up, you'll find it. Great. Please attempt it out, guys. Try it out at your end. And that should conclude the data part for our report. The next thing is how to make a report using this data. So my colleague Aman has already shared a link in the chat, so you guys can access that from the link as well. Yeah, if you're using flash fill, it will not give you the answer. As I mentioned earlier, it needs a pattern in the data. If the pattern does not exist, it will not be able to capture it. So guys, please be mindful of that. So it's not necessary every time 100% of the data can be done through Power BI. Oh, sorry, 100% of the data will be done through, let's say, Excel in this case, or flash fill in this case. Excel definitely, but flash fill sometimes it may not give you the correct answer all the time. So somewhere you may have to use formulas and other functions. Just wait for the confirmation in the chat, and then we. Oh, great, great! I got confirmation from the person. So that's first part of data. Next layer is how to use this data to make a report. Just wait for everyone else confirmation. I just have one confirmation yet. Selection. Okay. Now moving on to the next phase. Now I have the data ready with me, right? I want to make a report as I shown in the previous exercise. Now I'll be making the report in the adjacent sheet, the section itself. Let's say I'll start it from either JK or let's say KL, somewhere over here. So let's go with JK in this case. So over here, I'll just keep my cursor in, let's say J3. Okay, I'll go to insert. Oh, let me start with the selection itself. That's better. So I select the data. I go to insert, and here I need to tell my system that I want to make a pivot table, right? So this is a report. The reporting tool in this case is the pivot. Now, what does a pivot do? Basically, the purpose or the concept of a pivot is like it actually revolves anything, any summary that you're looking for is available in the pivot. So there is a entire data. If I want to have a summary of this data, then I can use a pivot table. Okay. So functions and formulas, as I mentioned, we will gradually come into it. So function and formulas will require a deep learning, deep dive session for that. This is just to give you an understanding, overall understanding of what Excel is capable of. So maybe in the future masterclass, once you get into the masterclass in more detail, definitely we can take up every section individually, like formulas, function, pivots, charts, reports. So there are a lot. It's like there is a full-fledged curriculum for you guys that we have built up. So you can reach out to the respective SPOC, and definitely they will share the curriculum with you guys. So you'll get an understanding exactly what will be happening in the curriculum or in the masterclass. Okay, so coming back here. So once the data is selected, I go to insert and I can click on pivot table, which is basically a summary report. Now, where do I want the report to be presented? I want it to be presented in the adjacent over here. So under the tool, okay, existing workbook, it's asking me for a location as I've done in the early stage. I'll refer J3 as my output. I click OK, and that confirms the position of my output. Now, I know that, okay, these are the data that I'm having. Okay, I can present all of these data into the output over here. Let me squeeze the column a little bit over here. and that should do. Perfect. Now let's say I want to present a data. Now whatever you put into the rows will be plotted vertically, whatever you put into the column will be plotted horizontally, and anything that you want to have a result, it's in the center over here. And any filter, you just plot it at the J column, like in this on the top. Now let me do it and show it to you guys. Let's say I want to have a monthly revenue or like monthly production. I can simply take month into the data here. That gives me Jan to December. And let's say I take unit over here and that gives me the unit per month. Let me just make it into a comma separator with 0 decimals. And that you can see the highest production was in the month of January and in the month of June. And the total production throughout the year was 6,000 tons or 6,000 kilowatts, basically. If I have to understand what percentage was Jan and June contributing in total, I'll just have to do a summation of Jan and June. And I just have to divide it with the total. And that says that around 33% of the total like production was only from Jan and June. And in this, if I include, let's say, for example, if I also include June, July as a rainy season, then that covers almost near to 47, almost near to 50%. That means only 3 months itself were able to produce almost half of the entire year electricity. That's how I am able. So basically, you realize the data analysis that I'm performing here. So in this case, I can simply ask, right? What did I perform? What did I do during these time frame? What did I do during these time frame that actually the electricity production was so high? Maybe there is maintenance or maybe there is something, right? So if that's the case, I can simply put maintenance throughout every quarter. Let's say, okay, during the initial of December, okay, I'll put a maintenance that will cover for Jan, Feb, March. Then during the end of March, I'll put a maintenance that will cover for April, May, June. So that way I understand exactly what's happening and what is leading to more business. And that's data analysis in this case. And to even present this data in a better manner, I can simply click in. I can go to insert and I can simply make charts over here. Now, let's say, for example, if I want to have a comparative chart, I can go for a bar chart here. And that's my comparative chart over here. You can see I can exactly look at it and now I understand exactly how the revenue is being generated. That's a comparative chart. And if in case I want to have a percentage, let's say quarterly report. Like for example, I want a quarterly report in this case, I can simply create a quarter-wise report here. Let's say just for the sake of it. I'll just do it. Although I can do it with the pivot directly here, but I'll just show it to you guys. Let's say you have the pivot data. You can create your own quarters. And let's say Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. I'll just pull it down. And let's say totals. In this case, I'll just do a summation of the first quarter, second quarter here, third quarter over here, and the last quarter at the end. So the quarter level, you can see moreover the contribution is almost the same, but to give it a more realistic output, I can either do a bar chart that shows me, okay, moreover the quarter 3 was the highest and then followed by quarter 1. Or to give it a more realistic output, I can actually give it a pie chart, which actually helps me to understand the ratio analysis, right? Ratio, let's say you can do a little bit of more tweaking and all, but then again, let's say data callout that shows me percentage distribution. And in case you want to format it a little bit more, you can simply make it a 3D effect and so on. So giving an understanding how the data works with just a simple app. So this is the extent of what Excel is capable of. You realize just a simple data is what I had earlier. But just with few things, I'm able to represent a full-fledged report in a matter of, let's say, minutes. Again, this is just a very vague. We will be understanding chart in a more detail, like we're having an understanding in tomorrow's session. But as of now, I want you to have an understanding of how data works or how reporting works. So this is monthly report. Now, right? So in this case, now let's say you want to go with a more detailed version of the output. In that situation, I take weekday. Now we have weekdays, right? We can simply put weekdays under the month, and that shows me the breakup of a weekly month, like monthly, weekly breakup. Like how is it happening? Right? That's basically a full breakthrough. That's a full breakthrough. But let's say if I want to have it across month, across week, I can just play around with these boxes here and there, and you can see a different set of result being prompted onto the screen. And that's total unit for me. And you can see a full data presentation. Definitely, I'll not recommend preparing a chart over here. That will not be our recommendation in this case, because it will be too much of cluttered information. But yes, there are types of chart that you can play with to get a better output. Let's say you can have a tree map, or let's say in this case, you can have a stack chart to get a better version of it. If not, you can also have it a horizontal version to give it a more realistic impact to see exactly how the data is being flowing. This can also be done. This can also be a part of it. So there are many variations, there are many iterations of the output, but that to give it a more realistic effect, you can use something called as a heat map, where I simply select the data here, only the number. And under home, there is a predefined concept called conditional formatting. Now, majority of us know this, that conditional formatting is applying color based on the logic. Yes, it is. But it actually has more layers to it. You can actually have a bar chart inside. You can actually have a color scaling, like the higher the value, the darker the color, green in this case, and lower the value, lighter the color. Let's say if it was production, I could use something called green to white, showing me where is the electricity produced higher, to white where the electricity is produced low. And you can see in this case that the majority of them is happening in these range, in this particular months, because their colors are darker in that area. And let's say if you want to have a bar chart comparison, you can have that also in your existing chart itself. Let's say something like this, a bar chart related, and that show you a bar related. And if in case you want to have a weekly report, even that's possible with, let's say, some icons, and you can present icon based outputs here. Here we go. So you can see during weekends is where the electricity, let's say if it was a consumption, during weekends, the consumptions are higher at house, because majority of the people work in the house, like stay at home, right, during Saturdays and Sundays. And I can see that in the report as well. So this is how data presentation is really useful when it comes to reporting. And this is data analysis, guys, where you are analyzing the data, you are getting the data, you are giving some meaningful report to the user, which adds value going forward. Please try this out at your end if in case you want to. I repeat again, I'll just repeat the process only once again. Let me delete these columns and let me repeat the whole structure. So the method was, first, you select the data. You go to insert, you can go to pivot table. It creates a structure frame. You will be asked where you want the output to be. Just choose an existing if in case you want to have it in the same sheet. Provide the location. In my case, I'm going with J3 again. I click OK. Once the frame is ready, you just have to take these headings, drop it into these 4 boxes, and you have the report. It's as simple as that. Like, for example, I took the month into the row, weekday into the column, units into the value, and there's it. You have a full report ready, available in a matter of minutes. Rest, I leave it up to you guys in terms of playing with colors and formatting. As of now, it's 23. I will wait till 27. 5 minutes to give an attempt so that you can play around. And then I'll show you some more elements using the same report. People online, once you are done, please type down in the chat. Try this out, guys, at your end. Any questions? Please post in the chat box. And as always, if you liked what you saw, just put down a high five in the chat box. I'll just wait for another few more minutes. To clean the data, as we mentioned earlier, you can use flash fill, Control E, or you can use a manual method of, let's say, find and replace. Either one of them would be. Feedback linked. Okay, we do have session for another, let's say, 20 minutes more, around half an hour approx. Like if you consider exclude Q&A part, then let's say another 20 minutes more. But let me ask my colleague to share it with you guys.
Oh, yes, we'll share the attendance link at 8:30, guys. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think 2-3
Okay.
more minutes.
Okay, no issues. No. Can you show how to remove the pivot table? To remove the pivot table, basically you'll have to delete the column, the entire one. Let's say in my case, I'll have to delete from J to R because the entire range is consuming the pivot area, right? So you select those range, right click on the column. And when I say right click, I'm referring to the name characters on the top. Right click on it, and then you can simply use the delete button to delete the entire section. So apparently pivot table does not have a feature of delete pivot table over here. So you will have to basically perform it through like the manual method in this case. You can do clear, but clear basically is just to clear the frame. It will not clear the pivot area for you. Remove that, you'll have to basically delete the whole structure. Yeah. Two more minutes and then we'll move down to the next phase. Okay, great. Can you please? Sure. Was having the heat map structure in this case, it's just selecting the data. Once the data is selected, you just go to the home tab. Now, do see to it that do not consider the total as a part of the heat map because the numbers are total at that end, right? So your color would be higher on that side. So avoid using heat map including the total. So let's say if I do it like this, and yeah, including the total, in that case, the heat map will present wrongly because all the majority of the color is actually shifted to that side, like to the higher side, right? So let's say to just to apply and show it to you, if I try this out, you see the darker color is at the total side. If the entire total or entire number is on that, the value volume over is over on the right total, right? So avoid selecting the totals. Only keep the minimum or the middle number and then implement conditional format of any type. Red, green, any color of your choice. Okay, great. Let's explain about pivot table. As I said, so pivot table is moreover a summary report which summarizes the entire data and gives you the output, like exactly what are you looking for and so it summarizes the data for you. That's a pivot table. Now, how to summarize it? This is one version what we saw here today. There are many other visuals like you will be learning in more detail once we go into the master class. So like how to make a report, how to make a running total, and not many things. Like just to give an example, let's say I'll just clear this one first. Let's say, for example, if I want to see and understand, okay, in January, Monday is contributing 129 kilowatts, then in that case, what is the percentage to the total? Now, if you remember, I did it manually outside by doing a manual totals. In this case, I can simply do a right click and I can ask my power, like in my Excel, to do the percentage itself. So this is what Excel is capable of. You just have to present the data in a proper format and it does give you the exact output that you're looking for. So in this case, it says that January is contributing around 1.9% of the total output. So if you say percentage wise, 15% is coming from Jan, 13 and 18% is coming from June and July. And if you talk about the weekly report, then in that case, this is already visible earlier. 16% is coming in total from Saturdays and Sunday, which comes down to 32% in total. This is the amount of analysis. Like once you get to the base level, then getting in more detail is always the simplicity part. It's very easy to get into that. I'll just set my data back to its original form. And let's move down to the second phase. What did I do? So to get the decimal, so to avoid getting the numbers in decimals, you just select the range. And under the home tab, there's a comma separator. Just implement that and you will get the full number. Just reduce it down over here by reduce or decrease decimal. And you can come it like bring it down all the way to a single, like no decimal or a single number point. Absolute number basically. Okay. Great. Now to get a more detailed version, as you remember and if you recollect that we have time with us, right? But let's say if I want to have a data set, like where I can play with the information, firstly, I want to have a chart level out. Let's say let me stretch the S column over here. Let me implement the color that I've already applied. So let me do that. So this is the one that I applied in earlier. And that was green to white. And I applied the bar chart over here on the numbers. That was data bar. And the last one was the tower, the network tower basically. Now, once we have this information, I need to see the trend on a weekly basis for everything. So in that case, what I do is I just keep the cursor over here, yes column, and there is something called as a cell level chart, which is also termed as Sparkline. To get that, you can go to insert, and there is a dedicated feature called line, also served for a Sparkline. You click, you provide the output over here of the rate. Now, definitely don't pick up the table. That's a wrong output. Pick up the data here, click OK, and there we have a Sparkline. I can just pull it down here like a formula, and it ends up giving a full-fledged Sparkline. There is a formula also, by the way, called Sparkline. Okay, so it's not there in my case. It's a line. Yeah, line set. So there is a formula also for that. But then again, I'll stick with this right now. So Sparkline gives you a line based out. Now, in this situation, once you have the line, you actually get an additional feature where you can simply go provide highest and the lowest point, and that shows in the data where is the highest and where is the lowest. It's not only limited to horizontal data, you can have it vertically also. Let's say if I want to have a bar comparison, in that case, I can simply pick a column and I pick up a vertical data. And that gives me a bar chart across month for every set of info. The rules are same over here. I can simply select the data. Oh, sorry, that's too much of selection. And I can go here also showing the highest and the lowest point in this case. The last but not the least, if I want to understand a summarized version of the report, I can simply click in and there is a time over here, right? Normally what we do is we put this into the filter and we choose a time. Let's say, what about the timing from, let's say, my work hour starts from, let's say, 9, right? So morning 9, 10, 11. So let's say 9 to 5. Let's say till 18. 9 to 5, 9 to 6. What's the amount of electricity consumed by the building? I click OK, and there we have it. That's the consumption pattern for that time. So this is the level of analysis that I can build if you are using more additional layouts. But this is a very simple version of it. To make it more reactable, to make it more approachable for let's say a user, you just have to add like a button. And to do that, you just right click on the button or like right click on the actual field, and there's an option called add slicer. You click and there we have it. You have a full button control out. You click on it, you can play around with individual timeline. If you are looking for a specific timeline, you just have to click and slide down. Let's say from 9. Let me stretch it a little bit more. Yeah. 9 to 5, 9 to 6. I'll just slide down. I guess what about the first half of the working? I'll just slide into the first half, or let's say the second half. However I want, I can play around. Just with single clicks, I'm able to present this out. Definitely, we can play around further into this in a more detailed version as well, like by selecting, framing it out into 2 columns, playing around into dual layers. So all these options are still available. But all this is on the later stage once the report is ready. Now it's just a single click out. So if you realize in the span of 2 hours, you just ended up learning how to make a dashboard summary report using a simplistic data which was not even clean to a clean data and then making an entire report out of it. This is what Excel is capable of. If you are having the same version, try it out in the next 5 minutes. Any questions, I'm happy to answer them post 45. So as of now, it's 39. Let's take 40 approx. So till 45, you can attempt it out. And if any questions after that, I'll be happy to answer them. People online, I would request everyone, the attendance sheet is already shared in the chat. Request you to please provide your attendance and your feedback using the link in the chat. And I repeat again, please share your feedback in terms of hi-fi. If in case you enjoyed, you learned, like whatever you saw, you enjoyed it, just mention your responses in the chat. Questions, any queries, please respond in the chat box. And please do share your feedback. It's already shared in the chat. And also do mark your attendance over there. As I said, and I'm repeating this again, guys, please do not consider this as 100%. This is just the tip of the iceberg. There are more things, more options that you can learn in as you explore Excel to a greater extent. This is just the kickstart, I would say. Can you please forward? Yeah, I'll just ask my colleague to just share it across. Aman, would you please just post the link again in the chat? I guess some of them have not seen
Yeah,
the
sure,
some.
I'm posting.
Thank you. Oh, thank you, Aman. So, guys, we have another 10 to 15 minutes now approx. So, any questions, any queries, you can post in the chat box and I'll be happy to answer them to the best of my effort. So, let me open the platform for Q&As now. Just a sec. Just mention your questions in the chat. I'll be taking enough from there itself and I'll be announcing it onto the This is the main screen. So, can you also what I can do is I can help you with the completed version of the file. That way you can try that out. Okay, so I'll just share the completed file with you. So here we go. I've just dumped the file in the chat, so you should be having that now. I've dumped it in the chat, so I guess Aman can also put it in the drive and share the link across for others as well. Nitali, I'm glad for the feedback. Really appreciating that you enjoyed the learning. So appreciating that. And I hope that I'm able to serve the same thing in tomorrow and day after session as well. So tomorrow we'll be understanding Excel in a bit more detail, and then we'll gradually kickstart with Power BI. So tomorrow at least we'll see that everyone is getting the installation done for Power BI. If not, then I would request everyone to please pre-install it so that we can save some time over there. As we have another 5 to 7 more minutes. Anusha, if you can, you can also install Power BI, which would be a part of tomorrow's session as well. So tomorrow and day after, we'll also be understanding Power BI, right? So you get it. So if in case you want to do a hands-on, you can get it installed. If not, you can just watch it. That's also totally fine. Akshay, thank you for your feedback. Appreciating that. Thank you. I believe, Aman, there are no questions. So I hand over to you then, the platform. You can take it from here.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much. So guys, if you have any query or question for me, please drop in the chat box. Anything. YouTube peoples and the Zoom as well. So there are feedback, useful session. Thank you. You're most welcome. So one question is that where I get the recorded of videos, sir. So you will get the recordings of the video over LMS. So you can visit LMS. I hope all of you have LMS access. If not, then please drop an sorry. If you don't have email, if you don't have LMS access, then drop an email to edl@excelr.com. I'm sharing that email ID with you in chat box. Okay. Guys, anything else? Any query? Yeah. I already shared the attendance link in the chat box. Guys, please mark your attendance and share your valuable feedback as well. So there is one question. What if few of my friends want to join this same session but are not registered and want to register? So Mitali, you are done with your registration? Then share the same link with your friends. Then they will also get the LMS access. I hope that link is with you. If not, then I will share it with you. Yes, I want the link. Okay, Mitali, I'm sharing. Just give me 1 minute. You need a link for data analyst. Yeah. Mitali, 1 minute. Huh? All good. Okay, no problem. This data analyst. Yes, Mitali, I shared with you in the chat box. Others, any query? Okay, thanks a lot for that help. Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you so much, sir. You're welcome, Sana. Yes, guys, we are done with the day. If you don't have any query or question, you can leave the session. If any question, please post in the chat box. I will take it up. Thank you so much, sir. You're welcome. Excellent session. I enjoyed a lot. Thank you. Sir, I leave the session. So yeah, you can. We can get the certificate for this program, right? So if you attending more than 60% of the sessions, you will get the certificate. So 60% attendance is a mandatory. You need to mark your attendance using Google Form. Okay. Yes, the program duration is for 10 hours, 5 days, 2 hours per day, Monday to Friday. Sir, I have mailed my email. Okay, please give me the access. Okay, let me check. On which email ID you sent out the email? Yeah, on the same edl@excel.com, right? Yeah, we received will give you access shortly. Guys, we have 3-4 minutes. Any query? Please drop in the chat box. Please share the attendance form. Okay, I'm sharing. Okay, so I hope there is no any query or question. So we are done with the day. So we'll meet you on tomorrow at same time. Thank you so much once again for joining the session.